The shrieking started at exactly 7:30 in the morning, like clockwork. There I was, hammer in hand, trying to put in a new fence post and minding my own business, when this piercing voice just cut right through the calm, like someone running a chainsaw through Sunday silence. I look up, and here comes a woman, storming across my lawn like she's about to lay down the law, waving some stack of official papers in one hand and holding her phone in the other. Her face was so red, I thought she might actually explode. "You are in direct violation of homeowners association regulations," she screeched, voice so high I'm surprised the neighborhood windows didn't crack. "I am calling the police. 911, right now? You cannot block this path." And there I was, standing with my hammer, looking her dead in the eyes, feeling oddly calm for a man being threatened before he'd even had his second cup of coffee. Now, let me set the scene for you. This woman, let's call her Karen Wheeler, because, yeah, she was one of those Karens, stood there with her perfect blonde hair, crisp white blouse, and navy slacks, looking like she just stepped out of a board meeting and right onto my lawn. Her eyes had that wild spark, the kind you only get from someone who's never been told no in their entire adult life. "Ma'am," I replied as measured as I could, "this is my property. I have every right to build a fence here." She just laughed, harsh and sharp, probably scared the birds out of the trees. "Your property? This is a walking path. Folks have been using it for over a decade. You moved in 3 months ago, and you think you can change everything?" I set my hammer down, wiped the sweat from my brow. The sun was already getting warm, and, honestly, I was just trying to finish before the heat got bad. "I'm not changing anything. I'm just marking my property line. There's a sidewalk across the street. Feel free to use that." You'd have thought I asked her to walk across hot coals. The sidewalk. Do you know how much longer that takes? This path cuts 15 minutes off my morning walk. "That's unfortunate," I said, "but it doesn't give you the right to trespass on my land." She raised her phone, hands shaking. "We'll see what the police say. I'm calling them now." And here's the part she didn't know. I'm the sheriff. Sheriff James Morrison. 22 years in law enforcement. 8 as the elected sheriff of this very county. You know what I mean? The irony was so thick, I could have spread it on toast. 3 months back, I'd bought this place at the edge of what's called Maple Ridge Estates, right outside the HOA's grasp. That was a selling point for me. I'd spent my whole life following rules, enforcing regulations. I wanted some peace, some space to breathe. The first few weeks were exactly that. Coffee on the porch, sunsets over the hills, and quiet neighbors who mostly kept to themselves. But that all changed the day Karen Wheeler marched across my yard for the first time, talking loud on her phone about some committee meeting, waving her arms around like she was conducting an orchestra. Not along the edge, not a quick shortcut. She cut right through the middle like she owned it. That's when I stopped her and said, "Excuse me, could you please use the sidewalk?" She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "This is a neighborhood path," she protested. "No, ma'am. This is private property. Mine." She blinked, saw the survey stakes, the no trespassing sign, and hesitated, just for a second. Then she launched into her credentials. "I'm Karen Wheeler, president of the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association." She said it like a badge of honor. I kept it polite. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Wheeler. But there's nothing to work out. I just don't want folks walking through my yard." Her smile tightened. "Mr. Morrison, surely you understand. Neighborhoods work best when we cooperate. This path connects to the community center. Blocking it will inconvenience dozens of people." I shrugged. "Then I suggest they find another route." From that day on, it became her personal mission to prove she could do whatever she wanted. Every morning, 7:30 sharp, she'd stomp across my grass in those designer shoes, leaving little holes everywhere. I put up decorative markers, she stepped over them. I strung up a rope with flags, she ducked under. Each time, she got more hostile. She threw around big legal words: prescriptive easement, community standards, precedent, stuff she'd clearly Googled that morning. But the last straw was her little dog, a yappy chihuahua named Princess, leaving me a gift right in my flower bed. When I pointed it out, Karen just shrugged. That's part of living in a community. That's when I decided enough was enough. I'd build a fence. Nothing ugly, just a nice wood privacy fence marking what was mine. Checked the codes, made sure I didn't need a permit, got to work. The morning I started on the section blocking her path, she showed up, stormy as a thundercloud. You can't build a fence without HOA approval, she barked. Actually, I can, I replied. I'm not part of your HOA. Her face went through a rainbow of reds and purples. She tried a new angle. All properties adjacent to Maple Ridge fall under our jurisdiction for aesthetics. Now, I've heard some creative arguments in my time, but this one took the cake. I told her, no, Mrs. Wheeler. I'm not a member. I didn't sign anything. You can't tell me what to do with my own property. She huffed off. What followed was straight out of a bad sitcom. Anonymous complaints to code enforcement, fire marshals, even the health department, all about my illegal fence. Each official showed up, shrugged, and told me I was fine. But each visit chipped away at my patience. Then she got my neighbors involved, started a whisper campaign. Mrs. Chun next door, sweet lady, told me Karen was asking about my parties, my stability as a neighbor, whether I was, safe for the community. She even had a petition. That was the moment I knew Karen was willing to drag anyone down with her. So I called in a few favors, checked with colleagues at the county offices. Turns out Karen had filed half a dozen complaints, even tried digging up dirt at the tax assessor and the sheriff's office. She still hadn't realized she was up against the actual sheriff. And the grand finale, she called my own department to complain about Officer James Morrison at 42 Maple Street, accusing me of being aggressive and unfit for duty. When my secretary patched her through, I answered, Sheriff Morrison speaking. She went silent for a solid 10 seconds, then hung up. At that point, it was almost comical. But Karen Wheeler wasn't done. That evening, I worked overtime on the fence. Next day, she'd escalated again. A vandal tore down a whole section. I knew who did it, but kept quiet. Installed a camera. 3 days later, the footage caught Karen herself with a crowbar. I could have had her arrested, but honestly, I wanted to see how deep this hole would get. The next Saturday, she showed up with an HOA attorney and some compliance officer, all dressed up like they were ready for trial. You're in violation, the lawyer declared, glancing nervously at Karen. On what grounds? I asked. He stammered through the same arguments, easements, permits, community standards. I laid it all out. My property's not part of your HOA. You have no say here. And I've got video of your president here vandalizing my fence. I showed them the video. The attorney's face went white. Karen grabbed my phone, threw it on the ground, and screamed, "This is harassment. I'm calling 911. She did. And you want to hear the best part? When the deputy rolled up, it was Martinez, one of my own. Karen went into her speech about aggressive neighbors and destroyed community property. Martinez glanced at me, then at my badge, then back at Karen, trying his hardest not to laugh. He said, "Ma'am, you called 911 to report the sheriff for building a fence on his own property." Her knees buckled. At that point, I laid it out. You've trespassed, vandalized, and filed false reports. That's 3 misdemeanors right there. So here's what's going to happen. You'll stay off my land, stop harassing my neighbors, pay for my phone, and tell your compliance officer to delete any photos she took today. If I see any more nonsense, I'll press every charge I can think of. Do you understand? She nodded, blubbering, agreeing to everything. Over the next few weeks, I finished my fence in peace. The neighborhood took notice. Folks actually thanked me. The HOA quietly updated their newsletter to clarify their limits. Karen Wheeler all but vanished, her reign of petty tyranny over. One morning, I mounted a little sign where the path used to cut through, just 4 words, respect the law and the line. And that's how I finally got the quiet life I'd been looking for. Sometimes justice isn't about courtroom drama or chase scenes. It's as simple as a fence and a sign reminding folks where boundaries really are. But let me ask you this. Was I right to stand my ground? Or should a neighborhood always bend for the so-called greater good? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear where you draw the line when it comes to home, community, and justice.